I think the main thought you should have when you think about data governance in your organization is not how am I doing it, it's why am I doing it.
Welcome to It's About Data, episode 68. Winfried Etzel joined us at Day-to-Day Texas to discuss data governance in the wild.
So Winfried, thank you for joining us here at Day-to-Day Texas. Tell our audience a little bit about yourself, and then we'll dig into the topic.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the invitation.
Thanks for coming.
Where should I start? Winfried, I'm German. I've been living in Norway for the last 20 years. Working in data management, data governance mainly, also data strategy. And closely aligned with DEMA still.
Okay.
And quite active in the Norwegian chapter and also doing like trainings on the side. And doing all the certified data management professional training and stuff. Yeah.
Okay. So, and I think this conference you've been discussing a lot, AI governance, data governance. So maybe talk a bit about how DEMA is responding to the emergence of AI. I mean, it's very new, but presumably you're in that conversation.
Well, yeah. DEMA is responding in a certain way, yeah. I think we are a couple of years behind. But there is a new DM book.
That's what I was going to ask, if there was another one. Yeah,
yes, there's one coming out. There's a project going on. It's in the early stages still.
Okay.
But a bit of a different approach to it, not that 700 pages.
Which I haven't read the whole thing, but we certainly cited it in our book.
Yeah. But I also realized that there are certain things where I disagree a bit with DEMA. It's kind of natural when you progress through the topic. So I'm writing my own book on the topic as well.
Okay.
The working title is Data Governance in the Wild, because I'm looking at how does data governance behave in distributed data landscapes, in big organizations where you have different domains with different needs and different perspectives, but also with AI, right?
Yeah, that's the big elephant in the room from our perspective.
Right.
Yeah.
So basically, with distributed data and AI, this is like our real 100,000-foot question. How does that basically change the world?
Oh, how does it change the world? It changes everything. And it changes, I'm looking at it from a data governance lens, right? How can we control that? And we can't really. I think that's the realization we have to have.
So do you call victory and go home?
No, it's not about control. It's about creating a certain structural awareness.
Okay.
I think that's more of a realistic way of moving forward than trying to control everything with authority and enforcement. And I'm looking at it from a bit of a different perspective, from a sociotechnical perspective, because once you get into governance, it's not a technical topic anymore. It becomes an organizational topic. It becomes a people topic. And that's where it gets complicated. Yeah. Because 1 + 1 does not equal 2 anymore, right?
Well, that's why we have Matt here, because he asked the complicated questions.
Exactly. Well, I think it's interesting that you bring up people, because with AI, with agents, we're trying to hand off human responsibilities to AI agents. And I think that's where a lot of the complexity is. Yeah. And frankly, it's really been the Wild West. And you look at the emergence of MCP, which is one of the fastest adopted standards I've seen in the data industry, but it doesn't have a lot of security or controls built in. It's just like, go for it, grab whatever you want, I'll give you all the data that you want.
Yeah, I really like standards.
Yeah.
Let's get that out.
Yeah.
I think that's a very good way and approach of getting an agreement and moving forward in our industry. At the same time, there are never like a standard that covers everything that we need to cover. Right? There's always a combination of standards, and then you as an organization have to decide what does actually apply to me and how do I want to organize my data, and then you create again a gap to other organizations.
Yeah.
So yes, standards are good, but but they're not the entire answer to our questions and our problems.
Yeah. What do you think? I mean, what needs to happen with MCP and AI in general? What, do we need standards for security and governance specifically, or is this something that individual companies and organizations are going to need to address separately?
I think we're going to see a development of both. standards and companies that are trying to navigate the field by themselves. I think if you want to win, you have to adopt a certain standard, especially if you want to create a certain interoperability to other organizations outside of your universe of your organization. But I think it's about understanding that the way you set up your structure, the way you set up your governance, is about creating a certain level of, we call it intentionality of what we are doing. Because if you don't do that, if you're just trying to bring forth control mechanisms, you're just creating, basically accelerating assumptions of how the world is.
So let's ask, how does this really translate down to a people level? Because obviously, I mean, I presume we're not going to have AI. I mean, AI may help us with governance, but it's not going to make the decisions. And ultimately, it's people that make the decisions. So does this change the way we basically the personal dynamics?
I'm not so sure about that.
Okay.
I think we can come into a situation where AI actually does make decisions on our
Do
behalf.
we want it to do that?
That's a different question. I think we're already seeing that with AI agents and agentic environments, where we see that the decision cycle gets shorter and shorter.
Yeah.
And the time window you have for human intervention gets also shorter and shorter.
Right.
So we are already in that. So I think it's more about understanding what decisions do we need humans involved and what decisions can we do without. In my book, I talk about something called a circuit breaker mechanism, right? You have an automated starting point, and then you have certain thresholds. And when you hit them, then that's where you involve the humans.
Right.
Interesting. And so it's almost like electric current. You draw too much current, it kicks off, and then the human goes and investigates. Give us an example. Like, what would a typical circuit breaker look like for a certain decision process?
That very much depends on your use case, right?
Yeah.
But I was looking at it from, and I'm working on oil and gas.
Yeah.
I was looking at it from a predictive maintenance kind of perspective, right?
Yeah.
That you can have certain maintenance operations that run entirely automatic.
Yeah.
But then there are certain points where you need to involve a human to make a decision. Is that the right certificate to use for that equipment that we have offshore on an oil rig, for example?
Got it. And so like specific things would trigger it.
Yeah.
And coming from, originally a data science background, I can think of other things too, which is you sort of look at a distribution of data. And so if the data distribution, if you're far at the long tail for any metric, then you're like, okay, go look at this. We don't know what this means. It's not like so specific logically to say this particular condition will trigger an alert, but it's just like things are kind of out of bounds and statistically improbable. So let's have a human investigate it.
Yeah. I think we have certain kinds of mechanisms already in place in data engineering, right? But we haven't scaled them to the degree we need to do.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah, and so we're talking like scaling up things like observability, big buzzword the last several years.
Exactly.
But also AI observability, also a big buzzword over the last several years.
Yeah, and then I think if you're talking about observability, there are certain topics that we have focused a lot on in data governance.
Yeah.
And these are topics like monitoring, observability, but also enforcement of policies.
Yeah.
And I think these are the topics where we can use machines more and more.
Right.
These are the things we can automate. But what is left? And that's the design, asking the right questions, the why. Why are we governing this data?
Yeah.
And to what purpose? And what do we want to get out of it as an organization?
Right. So when we're mixing humans and machines in a very distributed, how do we maintain the chain of accountability?
Yeah, that's a good one. I brought forth my own definition of data governance because I really think that the one we have today is outdated.
Yeah.
And in my definition, I call it a human-based system. Because we have 4 types of interactions that we look at. We have human-to-machine interaction, right? We have machine-to-human interaction. We have machine-machine interactions. But we also have human and human interactions. And I think we need to cater for all of them, right? And if you build a system that's not human-based, then you're basically saying that in theory, a machine can be accountable for human-to-human interaction, and that's a very scary thought. Yeah.
Well, it's funny because I want to connect this back to a conversation we had earlier today with Aaron Black about books, and we were talking about how AI is actually a very good search engine, especially when you bring in things like RAG. And so to me, when you're talking about monitoring, that's where AI's applications become very exciting. It's like, oh, I can just surface the stuff that's interesting, or if I ask a question, don't simply summarize what's going on, but also give me some links so I can click into anything that looks anomalous and potentially suspect.
Right. But you need to ask the right questions. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So, right, there's a little caveat there, right? You need to ask the right questions to get started.
Yes. And then jump in and actually do the investigation.
Happening afterwards.
Yeah. And I think the danger, from my perspective, is that it's what I call induced complacency. It's like we're already seeing this, right, where people just go to the AI answers and don't do further research. And so you need people who are like curious enough from an ops perspective to say, I really need to know what's going on beyond the summary that I'm getting.
I brought forth this example yesterday when I did my talk on a Norwegian municipality. Mm-hmm. And they wrote a report on schools and kindergartens. Mm-hmm. Right. And a professor read the report, and he was quoted in the report. And then he said, I've been quoted wrong before, but I've never been quoted for something I didn't write. So they realized that out of, I think, 18 sources that were quoted in the report, 11 were made up.
And this was AI generated?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so they afterwards looked into ChatGPT logs of the people in the municipality that wrote the report, and they found out that ChatGPT actually asked the question back, "Do you want me to verify my sources?" And someone in the municipality said, "Yeah, it's okay. We don't need to do that." I think that's exactly where governance fails.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's a funny thing because in academia, if you're writing a paper, tracking down sources and making sure they're all correct is one of the biggest headaches. But you have to do it, and you can't forget that task simply because we have AI tools now.
Exactly.
Well, the question is, I'm going to ask a really dumb question, but where does data governance, come in terms of trying to determine whether data is real or not? Because in the past, that was not an issue.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's also one of the reasons why we need to think differently. In the past, we could trace data back to its origin.
Right.
Data provenance, data lineage.
It was a walled garden of data.
Yeah, and the need for metadata, data lineage is getting stronger and stronger because there's an abundance of data. And data is reused for different use cases, different purposes. We have AI output. That's again been reused, and it's harder to track. Mm-hmm. I think that's a natural reaction that we are going into this topic, like ontologies and metadata, as a counter reaction. Mm-hmm. But I think from a governance perspective, if we realize that there is an abundance of data, and we need to deal with that, and we need to deal with that from a demand side perspective, I think we are better off than trying to trace back something that we really can't do.
And so a lot of it is this basic idea that retention is everything, right? Once the data is corrupted, or once you lose that metadata, it's gone for good. And I think let's go back to that ChatGPT example you just gave. I mean, the fact that they had logs for these conversations was really, really critical. And I guess that's going to be critical for any kind of data we consume. These fundamental issues we've been talking about for decades of lineage, for example, on logging.
Well, log data is more important than ever.
Right. Yeah. But it's these things are accelerated through AI. Yeah. The topics were there before, and that's why we said it in the beginning, I'm talking about distributed data landscapes in the first place, right? Because we had that distribution in organizations.
Right.
But now with AI, it's just...
Right. Anyway, we really appreciate your stopping in on this morning. Is there anything that you'd like to add, or that you'd like to conclude with? I mean, I know it's it's kind of boiling the ocean here.
Yeah. And I think that's exactly what we shouldn't do. Try to boil the ocean. I think we need to be very focused.
Well, our goal here is to start the discussion. So basically, give us, maybe name an issue or a question that our viewers should be thinking about.
I think the main thought you should have when you think about data governance in your organization is not how am I doing it, it's why am I doing it.
Oh, I like that.
Damn good question.
Okay. And maybe it should probably be a human reason too, back to what you were saying earlier. Yeah.
Winfried, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.